And I feel for Anton Forsberg. I really do, because obviously he went through the double knee tear. So it wasn't easy for him to even just come back from that, let alone play as often as he did this season. Not as much as he's played in his history with the Ottawa Senators, but still started 28 games more than he did last year. How would you summarize overall the season of Anton Forsberg?
Kind of similar to Eunice Corpusalo, Ross, just inconsistent. Like, how the narrative we had for the goalies was ever changing this year. Like, there was times where it was like, oh no, we can't see another Corpusalo start, and Forsey would get the nod, and you're like, oh nice, okay, Forsey's starting, and then it would be like the worst game. Like, perfect example, Ross. My birthday, March 17th, up against the Carolina Hurricanes. Marsha and I sit down, game's about to start. We cheers our drinks, and we're like, cheers to not having to watch Eunice Corpusalo tonight. Well, what happened? Anton Forsberg got shelled, and I'm pretty sure Corpy came in the game in relief. Like, it was just one of those where, like, nice. Like, we feel like we have a starting chance. Forsberg's starting. And there was just too many times, Ross, where both goalies were getting yanked for terrible games here. Now, the thing about Forsberg, if we're going to look for silver linings here, a winning record on this team with those stats is kind of crazy.
It's very impressive. 15, 12, and 0 was Anton Forsberg's record in 28 games. The .890 save percentage, identical to Korpisalo's, 3.21 goals against average. He did get 2 shutouts this season and still allowed 7.3 more goals than were to be expected. So the problem was consistency. I think the splits might even be more egregious for Anton Forsberg. 944 in wins, 944 in 15 wins.
Oh man.
In his 12 losses, 813.
What?
813. There were games, wasn't it the Vancouver game where he got shelled right off the bat?
I can't keep track of all the shellings, Ross.
Yeah, 4 goals on 13 shots against Vancouver in that game. He had 5 on 18 against Buffalo in the 3rd game of the season. That game was the one where they forgot to tell him at intermission that he was getting pulled. So that was super awkward. And there were just other, like the game against Vancouver earlier in the season, even he let in 5 on 16. Like, you just can't make, these are just horrific numbers. But then he had other games where he was classic Anton Forsberg. Even the last game of the season on the road in Boston, 34 saves, gets the win. The game in Tampa, his second last game, very solid performance. But then the game before that, lets in 3 on 9. Like, you just never knew what you were going to get. And that is probably the biggest indictment you can say on a goalie. You need to know what you're going to get. The most important thing for a team to have confidence in your goalie is knowing that it's going to be a consistent performance game in and game out. Forsberg was the opposite of that this year. He had stretches where he was so good, and then others where he was the worst goalie in the league.
And Ross, what did we say for Korpisalo? It was like 270 career games and 5 shutouts. It was something like that?
4 shutouts and 276.
So Anton Forsberg has played 160 games and has 5 shutouts.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah, and I feel like it's tough with Forsey, Ross, because part of me wants to be like, well, a guy coming off 2 blown MCLs, like, you're going to have a tough time recovering. But I wouldn't say watching him, I was like, that's a guy that has 2 bum knees, right? Like, it didn't seem like that was what dragged him down or made things difficult for him. So I'm not really sure where to go with Forsberg. And it's tough, Ross, here, because hockey's a business, especially when you're in a salary cap world. If Korpisalo and Forsberg had identical contracts, I think you're probably leaning on keeping Forsey. However, with I almost called him Forpisalo, unironically. With Korpisalo having 4 years left on his deal at that ticket, you kind of got to stick with them. You're not going to be able to trade that contract, and the buyout is lengthy. So if you're looking to make a change in goal, unfortunately, it's going to probably come at Anton Forsberg being shipped out here. But this guy's been a battler for this team. He has a winning record as an Ottawa Senator overall, which, again, is crazy. And I just would have liked for better for Forsberg, because he really was a big part of this team the last couple of years, a waiver wire pickup that came in clutch. And unfortunately, the writing's on the wall. We've probably seen his last as an Ottawa Senator, unfortunately.
He's got 1 year left at $2.75 million. Stay tuned, though. We'll see what happens next with Anton Forsberg. As always, let us know in the comments on YouTube at what you thought of Anton Forsberg's season for Ottawa.